Dear Serena, our 10-year high school reunion was last March, and I was hoping to see you there. Did you not see the invitation? Your face page is set to private, but I sent the invite and also requested to be your friend, but you haven't answered. I hope it was just an oversight.
An oversight.
And that you don't hold a grudge against me for me kidding around towards you in school.
Kidding around? You mean your abusive, abhorrent, physical, and emotional bullying?
I mean to apologize to you and to congratulate you on your success in Los Angeles. Wow, you really are living the dream. I always knew you were smart and capable, but I never imagined you'd own a recording studio.
And how does she know that?
It just so happens that I'm in LA on vacation, and I was hoping you'd have time to let me buy you a cup of coffee. We can catch up.
Never in a million years.
My phone number is 555-378-9103. I'll be looking forward to your call. Love ya.
Love ya. Carter.
And act on her own truth to carry its full emotional weight. 10 years is a long time to carry something, and the specificity of that number in Serena's story matters, because it tells us this isn't fresh wound but old, calcified injury, pain that has had a full decade to settle into the architecture of her adult life, shaping her sleep, her sense of safety, her relationship to her own memory, and the fact that she has never truly gotten over what happened to her during those 4 years of high school deserves to be read with real seriousness, rather than dismissed as someone simply failing to move on. Because sustained, severe bullying specifically targeting a person's sexuality during adolescence, a period when identity is still forming and social rejection carries outsized psychological weight, can produce exactly this kind of long-tail trauma, embedding itself so deeply that even a decade of distance and presumably a completely different adult life cannot fully dislodge it. The specific content of Serena's recurring dreams, in which she finds herself romancing the very girls who tormented her, deserves careful, compassionate psychological unpacking, rather than being read at face value as evidence of some hidden, true desire for her former tormentors, because trauma frequently manifests in exactly this kind of confusing, seemingly contradictory way. The mind replaying scenes of pain but altering their emotional register, transforming cruelty into intimacy, hostility into desire, and this transformation often reflects not a genuine hidden longing for the people who caused harm, but something more psychologically complex, the brain's attempt to process an experience that was overwhelming and unresolved, by reshaping it into a form that feels, however disturbingly, more bearable or more within Serena's control than the original helplessness of being bullied ever was. It's worth naming directly a pattern trauma researchers and clinicians have long observed, that intense negative attention during formative years, particularly attention that involves being singled out, watched, discussed, and targeted specifically for a core aspect of identity, can become psychologically entangled with the entirely separate experience of being noticed and wanted, because both experiences share a common structural feature: someone's fixed, sustained attention. And for a young person whose emerging sexuality was met primarily with cruelty, rather than any positive romantic attention from peers, the mind may struggle even years later to fully separate the felt experience of being intensely focused on by another girl from actual desire, producing exactly the kind of unsettling dream content Serena describes, not because she secretly wanted her bullies, but because her only formative experience of being that visible to other girls during a critical period of sexual identity development was wrapped in pain rather than affection. This distinction matters enormously for how this story should be read and ultimately resolved, because a narrative that treated these dreams as evidence of genuine repressed desire, suggesting Serena should seek out her former bullies as adults to actualize some hidden romantic potential, would be making a serious and potentially harmful category error, mistaking a trauma symptom for an authentic desire, and would risk sending an actively damaging message to any viewer who has experienced similar intrusive thoughts about people who hurt them. The message that these thoughts must be honored and pursued rather than understood and worked through as the psychological residue of harm, and a genuinely responsible telling of this story needs to hold this distinction clearly, honoring the reality and disturbing nature of what Serena is experiencing without ever suggesting the appropriate resolution is romantic reunion with the actual people who tormented her a decade ago. What deserves real narrative attention instead is Serena's process of finally understanding what these dreams are actually telling her, not a secret desire for cruelty or for the specific girls who hurt her, but a still unhealed wound around her own sense of worthiness of love, Because if her only sustained, intense attention from other girls during adolescence came wrapped in rejection and abuse, some part of her may have absorbed a confused, painful lesson that being truly seen by another woman is inherently dangerous, that intensity and cruelty are linked, that wanting to be noticed by other women carries an implicit threat, and unpacking this confusion, ideally through the story depicting Serena finally seeking real therapeutic support or at minimum real honest reflection rather than continued avoidance, represents the actual meaningful arc available in this premise, the slow work of separating what happened to her from what she actually deserves and wants now, learning that being seen by a woman who might genuinely love her, rather than one who mocked her, does not have to carry the same danger her adolescent brain learned to associate with visibility. There's real value, too, in imagining Serena's adult life alongside these unresolved dreams, whether she has found genuine connection since high school, or whether this trauma has made her guarded avoidant of exactly the kind of vulnerability required for healthy adult intimacy. Because many survivors of severe bullying, particularly bullying targeting their sexuality during formative years, carry forward real difficulty trusting that any woman's attention or affection is safe, having learned young that visibility as a queer person could invite cruelty rather than acceptance. And Serena's journey toward healing, whatever specific form the story gives it, likely needs to include the gradual, difficult work of learning to distinguish present-day safety from past danger, allowing herself to be truly seen by someone new without her nervous system immediately flagging that visibility as threat. If this story eventually introduces a genuine, healthy, romantic connection for Serena, the most emotionally honest and valuable version would show this new relationship succeeding specifically because it offers her something her adolescence never did: attention and desire without cruelty, visibility without danger. And this contrast, however implicit, would allow the story to actually resolve its central psychological tension in a genuinely healing direction, demonstrating that the dreams Serena has carried for a decade were never really about the specific girls who bullied her at all, but about a confused, painful association her mind formed under duress, one that a safe, genuine adult relationship might finally begin to untangle, teaching her, at last and after far too long, that being wanted by a woman who actually cares for her feels entirely different from anything her tormentors ever offered, and that difference itself, tenderness where there was once only cruelty, may be the real story worth telling here, Serena's slow reclamation of her right to be loved well,